This is the What About You podcast, and I'm here today with Dr. Sarah Bienes. Dr. Bienes, is it okay if we start with a prayer?
Absolutely.
God, thank you for the gift of today. Thank you for the opportunity to sit down and talk with Dr. Bienes, who's my former student here at Cabrini High School, and we're so proud of her. I'll pray for everybody who is suffering right now. Have the Holy Spirit come upon them and their loved ones. Shine a light to help them to understand and bring peace to the situation they're going through and guide them through their difficulties. Amen.
Amen.
Dr. Bienes, should I call you? What do your patients call you?
Dr. Sarah. It's just easier.
Okay. Dr. Sarah, where do you practice dentistry?
I am practicing dentistry in Harahan, Louisiana right now at a private practice. And I took over for Dr. Shannon Bergeron. So that is what the practice is named right now. And we're in the process of changing the name as I purchase the practice. So that is where I am currently at.
Is your practice accepting new patients currently?
Yes, we are happy to accept new patients. You can call our office at 504-738-9900, and our front desk will be happy to schedule you for an appointment.
Okay, great. Talk about your parents and then, your earliest memories going forward.
I would be happy to. So I feel so lucky to have really the greatest parents I could possibly imagine. My parents raised my sister and I with so much love and support and acceptance, and I really owe so much to them for where I am today, and I'm so grateful to them. They've helped me through every step of my life and continue to help me as an adult. But my mom is Maria Bienes. She was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, and she went to Cabrini High School and taught religion here for 26 years. She's now retired and enjoying life with my dad, but she's the sweetest lady and my biggest supporter. And anyone who knows her knows how just friendly and nice she is. And she's raised my sister and I to always have a service mindset and trying to help others. So love my mom so much. She constantly is walking around town handing out my business cards to people. She's just my biggest supporter. So very grateful for her. And my dad is from Cuba. He moved here when he was 21 years old, and he had nothing. And he's had to work extremely hard to not only learn the language, but to make a living for himself. And he started his own company, a flooring company, Caribbean Tile and Marble, where he worked on his hands and knees every single day to provide for us and did really well. And now he's retired and enjoying his life with my mom, and has just been the most supportive dad. He picked my sister and I up from school when we were little and has just always been there for us. They help me with so much. They help me take care of my dogs while I'm at work now, and just any little thing around the house, they help. But in those beginning years, I just remember my sister and I went to Crescent Cradle, which is the nursery school at Cabrini, and my mom was teaching at Cabrini. So it was just Cabrini was kind of like a family type atmosphere growing up. And my parents have just always instilled in us, especially because of how hard my dad had to work, and my mom being supportive of that, just work is gold, always striving to get a great education and make sure that we were set up to have good jobs where we were always able to work in our future.
I can vouch for a lot of the things that Dr. Sarah's saying because I knew her for 5 years when she was a student at Cabrini. She was valedictorian, or salutatorian?
I was valedictorian.
Valedictorian, yeah. Mm-hmm. And just a wonderful young lady the entire time, just a model person. What she said about her parents, I've known her parents for a long time, and they are just wonderful people. I think if you're looking for, a dentist, for me, the thing that I wonder about with my dentist, or with a dentist, not my dentist, because the dentist I have had a wonderful experience. I've been with him for a long, long time, and he's a great dentist. But even still, you never know the trust issue. You never know. Well, you can kind of tell the character of your dentist and get a sense for it that way. But I think a lot of people just feel like, oh, well, dentistry, it can be expensive, and are they charging me extra for things that I don't really need? Are they giving me services to make money off the insurance that I don't really need? I think that's something, if you choose to be a patient of Dr. Sarah, I can vouch that you're with somebody that's has a high integrity, the highest integrity really, because like I said, I've known her, but also known her parents, is not a person that would do that kind of a thing. And so not only is she just, a very brilliant mind so that she can, technically do a great job for you, but she's a very honest person. So I'll recommend her to you that way.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I try to treat my patients as if I would treat what I would want done on me or any of my family members. And definitely try to just be as upfront and honest with the patients as possible, recommending treatment when I think it really does need to be done, and explaining why. And if there's something that I'm concerned about that we can watch, explaining that as well. But yes, I definitely hope my patients trust that I'm giving my true, honest opinion and thoughts.
And so going back to your youth, where did you grow up? And as far as if you talk about like where you went to elementary school, or if you played at a playground or something like that.
I grew up in Metairie, Louisiana, and went to St. Francis Xavier with my sister, and several of my cousins went there, so it was fun. We were all there at the same time. Did some sports at Lakeshore Playground, which was close by my parents' house and my childhood house in Metairie. And I did a bunch of different sports, tried everything out. Nothing really stuck. I wasn't good at anything, but it was fun when you're little, and it's just all for, getting some exercise. So, yes, that's where I grew up. And
so you left St. Francis Xavier, but earlier than that, you had been at Crescent Cradle as a youngster, and your mom had gone to Cabrini and also was a teacher at Cabrini for much of her work life, and so you knew you were going to go there, right?
Yes.
And so, what do you remember about when you went from someone who would always kind of look forward to when you would go to Cabrini to starting out? Did you start out before Katrina?
Yes. Well, right before. 8th grade year, which is the year I started Cabrini, was Katrina year. And I was actually really scared to come to Cabrini because none of my grammar school friends came. I was the only one, so I didn't know anyone. So even though I knew the staff, I guess, at Cabrini, I was really nervous to make friends. So those first couple of weeks of the school year before Katrina, I had made a couple of girlfriends, and I remember that Saturday night before Katrina was going to be our first sleepover. And then Katrina happened, so obviously there was no sleepover. And that girl that I was going to spend the night at her house moved away. Oh. But was so happy to come back to Cabrini. I think Cabrini might have opened in November of that year. But yes, Katrina year was my 8th grade year.
So a lot of people listening, some are the younger people listening, either were born after Katrina or too young to remember it. Could you tell us about what it was like in your eyes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were very, very lucky that our house in Metairie didn't flood. So I have to start off by saying I have so much, I'm so appreciative that didn't happen to us, and I can't even begin to imagine how it felt to have your whole house flooded and destroyed. But it definitely did affect our life, meaning we had to move for several months and couldn't go to the same schools. So my sister and my family and I, we moved to Gulf Shores. We were headed towards Miami because my dad has family there, but that's a very long drive. So my dad likes to play golf, and he remembered this golf course that he had stayed at that had some condos in Gulf Shores. So he said, let's just go and see if they have a condo we can rent. And they did. So we wound up, my parents rented that condo, and we went looking at different schools, and there was a Catholic school there. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was St. Bernadette. And they were extremely welcoming and nice and did not charge tuition. So my sister and I got to go there, and the students were really warm and accepting and nice.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember about Katrina is how loving people were wherever you went, especially if they weren't, people that their heart went out to you for what you were going through, whether your house flooded or not, just it did leave a scar, just to varying degrees depending on what happened, but just it was a very traumatic, memorable kind of a thing. But people were very loving and what can I do for you, and very giving people. And so that hopefully we can do that for other people, on a daily basis,
Absolutely. Yes. I've always tried to keep that in mind. The way that everyone helped after Katrina was really unbelievable from all over the world, really. But specifically those people in Alabama were very nice. It was hard though. I do remember I never unmade my bed. I slept on top of the comforter because I refused to establish it as my bed because I wanted my bed to be home. So for months, I just slept on top of the comforter. And for the first time in my life, I really didn't apply myself in school there at all either. It was hard. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to come home. So I was very glad when we got to come back.
And your first school year at Cabrini was my first school year at Cabrini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I started, I think, January 20th of 2006.
Okay.
And so I'd been teaching at St. Pius, and then they had reduced enrollment because of the storm, and I was a relatively new teacher there. And then I waited until the twin spans, a temporary twin spans was reestablished because I lived in Slidell,
okay.
in order to kind of start working. And so, yeah, and I started as a part-time teacher, actually, even though I was here full-time. And then I directed the school play in my 8th grade year.
Wow.
It was called 12 Angry Women. I wound up picking.
Like that. That's great.
Because I'd always liked this, a TV movie called 12 Angry Men from the 50s that's been made into a play.
Of course, I've seen it. It's great.
And Cabrini's actually done it a second time. They did it about, 7 years ago. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And so I've been here at Cabrini ever since. And so you graduated from Cabrini, and then where do you go from there?
I went to LSU. I really had high hopes. I wanted to get out of state. I wanted to go far. I wanted Ivy League or something like that, something prestigious. But I knew I wanted to go to professional school, and I really didn't want to be in extreme debt. So LSU just made the most sense because I wasn't going to be able to get TOPS and everything, and it would be paid for. And I'm so glad I went to LSU. It was such a great experience. I don't regret it at all. Had an awesome college experience. Loved everything. And the education was really, really good and prepared me for dental school. So there was nothing lacking from the experience at all except debt, which was great.
Yeah. And so you so at LSU, did you know at that time that you wanted to be a dentist?
No, when I started, I really thought I wanted to go to medical school. So I started shadowing different doctors in Baton Rouge. And it was actually in shadowing ER doctors that I got turned to dentistry because they were not extremely happy in their careers. And they actually told me, do not do this. Don't go to medical school. You should really look into becoming a dentist. Their schedules are so great. They don't have to go to residency. It's just like a better way of life. You should really look into it. And I really took that to heart. I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of crazy. And I did see how unhappy they were. And I didn't really love being in the ER. I know that's just one type of medical
work
career,
situation, yeah.
But it kind of just opened my eyes to dentistry. And I had never considered it before. So I started shadowing some dentists, and I loved how it was just procedural. You just went in, you did your procedures, but you also got to have relationships with patients and just everything about it, the schooling, the work-life balance, and what you actually do each day, procedures, and getting to have relationships with your patients, take people out of pain, create confident smiles, all just was something that I was really interested in, and I decided to switch and pursue it, and I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah, but I've never really had dental pain myself, but that I can remember. But the confident smile thing, I think, is so important. Like for much of my life, especially as a youngster, I would smile without showing my teeth because I had an overbite and my teeth were out of alignment. And my parents, they got me a retainer when I was a young person, and then they were ready to get me the braces once the orthodontist said it was time for that. But I was nervous about it, and I kind of threw a little fit, and they said, well, if he doesn't want them, I'll save the money, you know? So they didn't, and it was all on me. But then I continued to be self-conscious about my teeth, and it does affect you. If you're self-conscious about your teeth, it affects your confidence.
Absolutely.
And that's so much of being confident is so important in life. And so when right before COVID, I got braces. My second oldest child, it was time for him to get braces, and so we both went to LSU.
Oh,
good. And they told me, oh, you could use them and this and that and why I should get them. And so I wound up doing it, and it was very great. And it was great timing because I was wearing a mask most of the time that I had braces.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So I'm very grateful that I did that. So,
and that's a great option to go to the dental school too. I'm glad y'all were able to do that. That's great.
It is. And I think it's a lot more cost effective than getting braces in private.
Probably.
I think it is. But, so you were shadowing, and that's another thing I wanted to reinforce, because my wife, she was pre-med as well at LSU, because we were dating at the time at LSU, and so she was pre-med, and she was just about it. And then she went and shadowed one day a physical therapist, and then she came over after that to my apartment and closed the door and said, I know what I want to do. I want to be a physical therapist. And it was true. Then ever since then, and she's a physical therapist, And so I really recommend that to people is shadow. Make a list of the different careers that you might be interested in, and make time, force yourself, even though you're not going to maybe, want to take time away from whatever fun activity you're doing. Go ahead and do that, or especially do it in college. But the earlier the better, because that way you wouldn't have to switch majors maybe. But that's the way you really learn what the daily life of that profession is like. And so I feel bad sometimes for people, they major in something, and maybe even it's something that's a good major, a good degree, and they get a good job, but it's not the job for them. Then they start in the job, and after 3 weeks, they have this attack where they're saying, oh my God, I don't like this at all. And I've got all this student debt, and I've told everybody I'm all, I can't do this for 40 years, And so if you shadow, you avoid all that happening.
Yes, absolutely. And specifically for dentistry, all of those things that I just said that were great parts of the job, you really have to shadow, because there's a lot of not so great things. Like, you are working in a mouth. It could gross some people out. It's not necessarily always the cleanest environment to work in. Also, it's a very physical job. You have to have good posture, and you have to keep, your core very tight so that you don't throw out your back. You can have neck problems. So getting to see the day-to-day of a dentist is really important for all the negatives as well. And also just another thing to consider is you're working with the public. So also, if you're shadowing, and do you want to spend that much time talking to people all day? There's so many other jobs that would avoid that if that's not something you're interested in. There's just so many things that I think shadowing any profession you can pick up on that when you're just reading about it or thinking about it, you would miss.
Yeah, I agree. And so when you're an undergrad, obviously at the time you're taking pre-dental classes that are the prerequisites to get into dental school. And what major did you choose?
So I decided to do nutritional sciences because it was something that I was very interested in at the time and still am. And I was still able to get all of the prerequisites for dental school. And you can do the same for medical school with that specific major. And I'm really glad that I did that. The nutrition classes were a little different, a little break from all the hard science classes. And it was something I'm passionate about. So I would encourage anyone to choose a major that they are passionate about. Even if it's like history or music, you can still get your science classes, your core science classes. And then it also kind of just makes you stand out a little bit, because you do want to stand out when you're applying to dental school. You know, the majority of people are probably majoring in biology or chemistry or something like that. So in my opinion, it kind of makes you stand out a little bit.
You said you're passionate about nutrition. Why?
Growing up, my mom always has been a healthy eater, so it's something that was modeled for me. And then one of my very best friends also is very passionate about nutrition. And at some point in high school at Cabrini, it just was a spark, and I just got really into reading all about it and cooking healthy meals and feeling my best and fueling my body and my brain in the best way possible. And I just have been very interested in it ever since then. And it really is super related to your oral health. So a lot of high caries risk patients who have a lot of cavities, even though they're brushing and flossing, we can kind of treat that by talking about their diet, and maybe there's a few things that they're doing that are putting them at higher risk. So it has also been beneficial in my job.
So one thing that I've been focused on lately is nutrition as well. And the area that I'm focused on are trying to eliminate sugar, and I think it's called simple carbohydrates, and like processed foods as well.
Good for you.
Yeah. And so what I noticed back in the 90s, there was this diet that was popular in New Orleans called Sugar Busters. And I did it back then and had a great experience with it. So I've basically been doing that this year. I don't make a New Year's resolution. It's just not me, but that's just what I've been doing. And I noticed that maybe after even 4 days or so of the way that I do it, and I'm not sure if this is the official way, is no alcohol, no white rice. I basically do no rice, no bread, no white potato, no pasta, and that's pretty much it. And then I just pretty much eat any other thing. And so I've lost a good amount of weight on it, but but that's not the most significant thing. Like, to me, after about 3 or 4 days, I noticed my energy level go up dramatically, and just felt like this sort of fog that I had been in lift, this sort of tiring fog.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt like myself again for the first time in a long time.
Wow. Well, that's great.
And
that's
it's given
really
me
awesome.
like, I think that's part of the reason I started a podcast, is because of, I just felt so much more energetic. And then that led me to kind of feel a little bit more, I don't know, endeavoring, I guess. And so, yeah, I recommend it. Do you recommend as far as avoiding sugars and simple carbohydrates, or how do you like to eat nutrition wise?
Well, I'm happy to hear that you had those results. That shows the power of nutrition, I think, and that's really awesome. I agree that when I'm eating clean, and to me, clean means whole foods, as in not processed and real foods, I definitely feel like I have a more clear mind and have more energy and just feel like my best self. I've gone through different eating patterns and habits throughout my life. What I'm currently doing that works for me is I do intermittent fasting, and during the week I just try to eat lunch and dinner, and I try to eat very clean during the week. Definitely no just simple sugars, lots of vegetables, protein to keep you full. And on the weekends, I will probably be a little bit more lenient with the sugars, because another thing that I have learned is key for me is moderation. If I'm too strict, then I typically go kind of crazy and then get brain fog and stuff like that. So That's kind of what I try to do. I don't stick to anything super rigorous.
Yeah, I think that's good. And also, I liked what you said about how it changes over time, because that's the same sort of thing for me. Like earlier in October, November, and December, I was doing daytime fasting. So from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I wouldn't eat anything. I would just drink water, but I'd have, like a full breakfast, and then I'd have a full dinner.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have not heard of that. Wow. So
Yeah,
that kind of changes the timetable. Okay.
Yeah. So I think, there's a religious aspect to fasting. I wasn't doing it like that, but I think I saw it on some sort of social media that some person was doing it. And I was like, oh, I'll try that. But I like that idea because, things change, you change. And so it might be that, 2 months from now, I don't want to do this particular way of eating that I'm doing, but I don't want to just go back to unhealthy eating. So I can choose some other kind of healthy option that's different, but still healthy, and
Yes.
keep going with that, right?
Absolutely. Always trying to evolve, try new things. For me, I haven't been doing the intermittent fasting probably more than a year. I used to always eat breakfast. But I've found that I really like the way that it makes me feel to not eat breakfast. So that's just something that I've started incorporating. I've also read a lot of research about intermittent fasting and fasting in general, how it has anti-aging benefits. And it helps with your digestion to give your body time to actually digest the food that you ate. So that's kind of the reason I'm doing it right now. But yeah, we can always evolve the way we're eating and our habits.
And what I've experienced over time is your body changes over time. So, what it might be where, and I'm not saying this is the case, but where it works for you to not have breakfast now, and then maybe 15 years from now, it would work where you have a breakfast and skip, like I was mentioning with my daytime fast. It works for me. But yeah, I think when I was younger, what you're doing would have worked for me. So like as our bodies change as we age, I think things change. So it's like being flexible. We're at Cabrini. Mother Cabrini used to have this Italian word that we use a lot nowadays called disponibilità, which means like availability and just being flexible for whatever it takes to get the thing done. So I think that's good with the way that we're eating, right?
Absolutely.
And another part of nutrition that I'm trying to be conscious of and work on is sunlight. Because it gives you vitamin D, which helps your mood, your immune system, and other kinds of things. And what I talk about is a plant. So we have two basic types of life. We have flora and fauna. And if you're taking care of a plant, and if you put it in a dark room with a little phone going, a smartphone going, and you pour Coca-Cola into it every day, it's going to die pretty quickly. It's going to be very unhealthy. But if you put the plant in the sun and you give it plenty of water, it's going to grow wonderfully. And same sort of a thing with a lot of different animals, like your dog needs walks and needs water. It doesn't want sugar water, or unhealthy foods. Just give it healthy foods. And the same sort of, and so humans were also an animal, and I think we don't recognize that part of us, that we are an animal, and we need the sun. So from the beginnings of however long humans have been here on Earth, we have been out in the sun all day long just to survive, where we were hunters and gatherers for so long, and then after that, when we were farmers for so long. And it's only been just recently with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, and especially with air conditioning, that we're in this abnormal situation where we're indoors all the time. And a lot of times for me, I go to work, it's dark outside, and I come home, it's dark outside, and I'm indoors while I'm at work. So I'm not getting much vitamin D. So I suspect that level of my body is low. That's probably affecting my mood. It's also probably affecting me in other kind of health ways, because it seems to me that the sun is essential for life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy, and I couldn't agree more. Just have to wear sunscreen.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely.
And so you graduate. Well, tell us more when you're at undergrad. What sort of preparation do you do for dental school, and then applying to dental school, and then when you interviewed and got in? Could you tell us that story?
Yeah, sure. So you take all the prerequisite classes. You have to take the dental admissions tests, which I decided to take after my second year of college because it was right after organic chemistry. And to me, I just kind of wanted to get it out of the way. So yes, that was after my second year of college. And then you apply for dental school the summer before your senior year. And then you get interviews kind of in that fall semester. And then you find out if you've been accepted in December of that year. So I applied to 2 schools, LSU Dental School and Nova, which is in Fort Lauderdale. And the reason I applied there was because I have family in Miami, so it kind of made sense. But I was really hoping to get into LSU for multiple reasons. I wanted to stay in New Orleans, and I loved LSU's like clinical curriculum. You get to see a lot of patients, which is really strong at LSU. And LSU is a very affordable dental school compared to others. Nova was like multiple times the tuition of LSU. So I felt like the debt would be more manageable. And I was so grateful to get into LSU. And I was really, really excited to start. The interview process was pretty intense. It was very different between LSU and Nova. The Nova interview it was a morning, and you just kind of talked to a few people and met some students, and that was really it. The LSU Dental School interview is from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and you are with a group of other students in a room for the day, but you kind of are brought different places throughout the day. So you will do like a one-on-one interview with a doctor, you'll do a 2-on-1 interview, and I think maybe a group interview. There is chalk carving, which is, I believe it's the only dental school in the United States that still requires chalk carving, which is basically where you use a buffalo knife, which is a very common knife you use in dentistry, and you carve a piece of chalk to the specific dimensions specified by the school, and you do it in your interview, and then you submit it to be examined. So that was pretty interesting. And you're always just so worried that you'll drop your chalk and it will crack or something, which thankfully it didn't. And then one thing that I thought was really interesting about LSU's interview is there's a group aspect where you have a group project where you have to come up, for us specifically that year, we had to come up with something to implement in the dental world that we were going to design on CAD CAM and print on a 3D printer. And the entire time you're being videotaped. So they're watching your interactions with your other people in the room and seeing, do you take a leadership role? Do you stand back a little bit? Are you a team player? Are you just not helping at all? So that was pretty interesting. And we actually won that year. Like all of the different interview teams, once we all started dental school, they gave a little gift to the people who won. So we came up with Disney themed nose pieces to put on the nitrous mask for kids, which I guess was a good idea. Now, like being a real dentist, you can't even see the nose piece, but I guess the kids would think it's cute. But that was our group project. So then got into LSU, and it
seems like a really wise way to do the admissions interview, because it's easy to fake it for 45 minutes and not be who you really are.
Yeah.
It's harder to fake it for 8 hours when you're interacting with other people and not realizing that you're constantly being observed by multiple people, and then they're taking notes, taking video, etc., and then going back over that to see.
Absolutely.
You kind of reveal more of who you really are, right?
Absolutely. And another thing about the LSU interview is the entire time from the beginning to the end, the conference room is videotaped. So, and you don't necessarily know that. So they're watching to see like how you interact with the other people in the room. Like that's really important. And it's I respected that about the process so much, because I was like, the people that LSU is letting into their program, you have to check so many boxes that are important to be a dentist. You know, you have to be good talking to other people, talking to strangers, being a team player, being a good listener, being a leader. So I was really impressed by it all. It almost made it seem like, man, if you actually get in, you just checked all these boxes, like it's pretty awesome. So, and I could definitely say that about all the people in my class were such high quality candidates, and are great dentists. So they did a good job. They really try to make sure that the people that they accept are going to succeed. They don't want to accept anyone that's going to fail. And once you start dental school, they do whatever it takes to try to help you succeed and pass.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And so then take us there. So you're now you're in dental school. You're starting. The summer's over. What's it like day one going into dental school?
Yeah, so I was so grateful the summer before dental school. My sister and I did like a backpacking trip around Central America. So I was like living my best life, ready to start school, wasn't feeling burnt out or anything at all. So start dental school, really didn't know anyone. They have like a couple of welcome parties where you get to meet your classmates, and you get assigned to your tank, which is for your anatomy lab. And those are the people that you're going to spend a lot of time with. So I met my tank mates, that's what they call it. And I met my friend, Kaylee Redhead, who's my best friend. And we just did dental school together after that. We basically just were like, okay, we're best friends now. We spent a ton of time together doing the anatomy lab on our cadaver and just in class and studying. And you just first year dental school is just all class all the time. So you're just with your classmates because everyone's in the same classroom at all times. So you're just with each other all day. And so the first year is just a lot of rigorous classwork.
And it's 4 years long, dental school?
Yep, it is.
And so what's the second year like?
The second year is a little bit more clinical, but very hard. The beginning of second year, the first half is very, very challenging classwork. And then you kind of make it through that and you get kind of initiated into clinic. And then it's more exciting because you're finally getting to do dental work. So you kind of feel rewarded for all that hard classwork. And so you get to do fillings on patients that second year. So Kaylee was actually my first patient ever. She let me do a filling on her. So that was really nice. I later found out she was nervous. But yes, she let me do a filling on her that she needed. So that was really great. Second year, you finally get to start seeing patients, which is really, really satisfying after all that studying.
And then what about third year? What happens?
So third year, you're able to do more than just fillings. You're doing crowns, you're doing removable, which means dentures. You're doing fillings, of course. You're taking x-rays. You're kind of doing all of that clinical stuff alongside classwork, where your classwork switches from basic sciences to actual dental classes, where you're learning the process of making a denture while you might have a denture patient, or all of the research and the process of doing root canals, and you're practicing on extracted teeth, and you're learning about extractions and stuff like that. So it becomes much more about dentistry third year.
I've never had a crown, but I hear that word a lot. Can you explain for the layman what's involved there?
Sure. So a crown is basically a porcelain or some other type of dental material cap for your tooth. You typically do a crown when there's a broken piece of your tooth that's greater than 50% of the tooth structure, whether that's a filling or just the actual tooth broke. And then you cover it with a crown.
So do they grind down the remaining tooth so that the crown would fit over that?
You do have to take away a little bit of tooth structure in order to make room for the crown, yes.
And then for dentures, can you do implants instead of dentures? I'm just saying, can people do denture implants nowadays? I hear a lot about that as opposed to dentures. Is that an alternative, or?
There is alternatives, but it can also be something you do together. You can have an implant supported denture, where dentures typically stay in due to suction. That's with no implants, but that's not always really the most effective or successful, especially if patients have a lot of bone loss. They'll move a lot. So you can get some implants placed that the dentures kind of snap into, or there's higher levels. If you get more implants, the dentures could actually not be dentures anymore. There's something called a hybrid where they screw into the implant so they don't come out. There's all different types of restorative options that involve implants.
So sometimes you might not be able to just get implants. If you let's say that I would imagine implants are a more expensive option than the dentures normally, but you might not be able to get implants because of bone loss or other kinds of things?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, there's contraindications for dental implants. Just clinically, there could be things about your, biologically about your bone. There's not enough bone or certain types of tissue, but also if you're a smoker, if you have diabetes, some things like that also make it a higher risk for the implants to fail.
And with x-rays, I went to the dentist just recently, and so I got my x-rays, but I wonder about that as far as like the radiation. How safe is that for dental patients, or especially for like the hygienist that's regularly giving them? What are the x-rays like nowadays?
So they're very low radiation. The AEDA actually just came out with a recommendation that you no longer need to wear a lead apron when when the patient doesn't, and neither does the provider who's taking the x-ray. They equate a dental x-ray to standing in front of a microwave.
Oh.
So it's really low radiation. Now, as a provider, I don't like my assistants, or if I'm taking the x-ray, to be in the room. I like us to walk out of the room and press the button, even though we have the option to press it in the room, just because we do it probably 100 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably does all add up.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to encourage them to leave the room, or if I do it, I try to leave the room just for a little bit of protection.
Yeah.
But the ADA just came out with that, I think last month.
And so your last year, fourth year, what's that like for a dental student?
You're still taking classes. A lot of them are professional development. You're hearing from other dentists who come back to the school to teach. You're hearing from dentists in private practices who have very specific like treatments that they do, but you're spending the majority of your time in the clinic. So I think, if I can remember correctly, it's 4 days, Monday through Thursday, in the clinic taking care of patients, and then Fridays are your class day. And you have a lot of requirements that you have to meet fourth year. You have to do X amount of fillings, X amount of crowns, X amount of root canals, so many dentures, partials. You have to get all of that done. And it's not so easy just like, okay, let me just do all this, because we have to remember that these are on patients. So you have to find the patients that need these things, which makes it kind of tricky, because there's a lot of students in the school that need to do these requirements too. So it's kind of a little game you play where you have to take care of the patients and make sure that everyone in your class is getting their requirements met. It's not really fair for someone to do a ton of fillings on someone where they might have already met their requirements, and they could like share the patient with someone who needs to do some fillings. So you have to kind of really work with your class to get all your requirements met.
And you mentioned root canal. I've never had one of those. So what is it? Why would somebody need it? Things like that.
So you need a root canal if the tooth is infected, or if the decay goes to the nerve. Like if you're having a toothache and it's because decay has met the nerve. What a root canal is, it's the removal and cleaning of the root where the nerve was. And then you put a material in there that fills it and prevents any bacteria from getting back in. So you're able to save the tooth. It just no longer has a nerve in it.
Oh. And so you're finishing up fourth year. How do you go from a fourth year dental student to an employed dentist?
So that's actually pretty hard. I didn't really know what to do. I kind of turned to those career websites that have job listings like Indeed and things like that. And I knew that I was going to be living in Baton Rouge, so I was looking for a job there. And it's hard to find private practice jobs right out of school. Those are typically word of mouth. It's not something just listed online typically. So I found a job at a corporate office in Baton Rouge, and I'm so glad that I did that. It was such good exposure, and I worked with 3 other doctors, which was really, really great when you're first starting out. I personally don't know that I would have wanted to be alone at first, because you just see things you've never seen before, and it's really good to be able to ask someone about what they would do. So yes, I found my job just like on a job listing online, and applied and went and saw the office, and interviewed and everything, and decided that was the right fit for me.
And so how long were you there?
I was at that corporate office in Baton Rouge for 5 years.
And so, and how long ago did you move to the greater New Orleans area?
I moved back home in January of 2023, so a little over a year ago.
And I think you said at the beginning, where do you practice?
So I'm in Harahan, and the name of the office is Shannon Bergeron, LLC. He is the doctor that started the practice, and he passed away at the end of 2022, and that was right when I was really hoping to move home. And it's just serendipitous how it happened. My aunt knew I was wanting to move home and is very good friends with the hygienist at the office. And her hygienist was telling my aunt, it's, how horrible that the doctor passed away and that they were going to need someone to take over. So my aunt told me, and I reached out, and I was lucky enough to get to take over the practice. So, and it's a really wonderful practice. It's a small private practice. The patients are unbelievably sweet and loyal. And I'm just so grateful to be there.
Yeah, I think I might switch over to your practice, and
Thank you.
Even though I've loved nothing bad about my dentist at all. My dentist, matter of fact, I've been living on the North Shore since 2002, but my dentist was far on the edge of Kenner.
Okay.
But now it's in Metairie and does a wonderful job. But I live about over 50 miles from my dentist. But I think even if, let's say, it doesn't really matter, you're in Harahan. If I'm commuting from the North Shore, you go to a dentist maybe 3 times a year, once a year, something like that, in that range. So it's not that big of a deal if you're living, in New Orleans East, you're living in Metairie, to go to, Harahan once a year, 3 times a year, whatever it might be. If you're going to go to someone that you can trust,
right,
that's going to do the right thing and is going to treat you the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely say, I can see, I never got to meet Dr. Bergeron, who I took over for, but it's such a testament to who he was as a person, how loyal his patients are. I mean, most of his patients have been seeing him for 25 years and waited while the office didn't have a doctor, which was only a couple of months, but and we're happy to come back when I was there. And I think it's just because when you find someone you trust, you just stick with them. And a lot of the patients do not live in Harahan. A lot of them do, but we have patients coming from the North Shore, from Uptown, from Slidell, a couple of my patients have followed me from Baton Rouge and they drive to Harahan. So I think what you said about how, you drive over 50 miles to your dentist, that's pretty common when you find someone you can trust.
Exactly. That's the thing is because there are plenty of dentists on the North Shore close to me. So people, even my wife, she goes to a dentist on the North Shore. And so she's why are you going to drive that far? Well, I say, well, I like the person, but also, does a good job. I can trust the person, and dentistry can be expensive. Luckily for me, I haven't really had many issues, but it's not an insignificant, expense sometimes. But it's important to not be in pain, right, to be healthy, to have a confident smile, all these types of things. So, I would happily drive 50 miles for something that can wind up being very expensive and is very important to my overall health and well-being.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
So if someone would like to become a patient at your practice, could you give us again, what would they call or how?
Yeah, so the best thing to do right now is just call our office, the number is 504-738-9900. And our front desk will be happy to schedule you an appointment so you can become a patient.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Sarah.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.